Fine. Mr. Thompson, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
Absolutely. Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tim, would you mind?
Father, thank you again for bringing our group together to review the tax dollars go towards these guidance and the direction to be good stewards of public money.
Thank you. We do have a quorum. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? No, I have not, so if I can take a few minutes just to review these. Mr. Thompson, do you have a copy of the? Okay.
Did everybody get them from email from me?
Yes, yeah, thank you.
Okay, all right.
Would someone like to make a motion to any questions regarding the?
I'll make a motion. We approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second.
All approve? Motion passes. So on to new business. One of the things that we had spoken about at the last committee meeting was Department of Social Services and putting together a recommendation to the board this summer. And I was having some conversations with Mr. Taylor in the county, and he gave me a good thought, and we can have some discussion here. And I was hoping Catherine was going to be here because she does sit on the Department of Social Services Advisory Board, and so just kind of talking about that it may be a good idea just to present a more comprehensive report to the board, specifically as it relates to Department of Social Services, is to maybe set up a meeting or have a conversation. I don't know exactly what that may look like with the advisory board, Social Services Advisory Board, and just talk to them about our recommendations. And I think, based on what we've kind of spoken about here at the committee, that we could have that conversation with the advisory board, and again, have a more comprehensive report presented to them. I think what we've talked about, and maybe what the advisory board would speak to, especially as it relates to moving into a new location, and space and room and all of those things, that it may just present a more comprehensive report. So I wanted to kind of get everyone's kind of take on that. It's not something that we have to do. We're not mandated to kind of speak to an advisory board, but I know they are heavily involved with Department of Social Services. So, any thoughts?
It sounds like a good idea to me.
Okay. Can you put in the minutes to reach out to Catherine since she sits on the board and see how we can maybe coordinate that?
to coordinate meeting with the social.
Yeah, and just having
Services
a
Advisory Board.
conversation with them about our recommendations. And it doesn't have to be anything elaborate, but I know, again, she sits on that board, and so if we can utilize her and her ability to maybe touch base with some of the other committee members, that would be great.
Okay, reach out to Catherine about how to make contact with Social Services Advisory Board about our findings.
Mm-hmm.
And just for clarification, you mean to speak with them prior to your presentation to the Board of Supervisors?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And I just think it'd make maybe a more comprehensive, report. And so the second point of business is the Parks and Recreation Department. And Ms. Blaylock, would you like to kind of talk about that?
Yeah, at our last meeting, we discussed that was an area that several of the other members felt like they wanted to look into. So I have a meeting set up. You and I have the date. The chairman, Greg, and I will meet with Mr. Brooks on July 11th. So that will give us time to bring back a report to you all at our July meeting.
Okay. And that's great. And I was having a chance kind of reviewing.
Who were y'all meeting with? I'm sorry, I don't like that.
Yes, Mr. Brooks.
Okay.
So, some of the things that I was looking through the budget, looking at some of the numbers, but also looking at some of the challenges and opportunities that the Parks and Rec Department had kind of put in here. And one of the things,
Mr. Chairman, if I may
Yes,
ask
sir.
a question. We're going to contact Park and Rec in relation to what?
At our last meeting of the CBRC, there was a few members that suggested we reach out to them and get more detail on how they work hand in hand with the county and with the schools. For example, I know that they maintain some of the fields, the schools use them. It's sort of a back and forth relationship that's been extremely positive that I've always heard from both sides. And we're going to look more into the details of that and how they're working with the county and the school division and anywhere else in the county, and then bring that report back to the CBRC.
Is this in relation to perhaps there aren't enough recreation facilities?
I don't, what
Is
was
that where we're
brought up,
going
and
with
I'm
this?
not looking at it was someone else that brought this up at the last meeting. What was the concern, or what did they want us specifically to look at?
well, that could be possible. I mean, part of going into this meeting is going in actually with an open mind and not with any, predetermined, results or outcomes or looking for anything. And I know Kevin, and I know several people know Kevin, and really want to kind of get his insight. Having grown up here in the county myself, I know with certain sports there's been somewhat of a decline, and so and as the county continues to grow, and that was one of the things I was going to talk about. As the county continues to grow, I think there's going to be a need for more opportunities for people to engage in, because I was going back and looking at the challenges and the opportunities, and kind of.
Well, if we're talking about ball fields, according to the comp plan, we can use school ball fields.
Mm-hmm.
I think they do. And
Yeah.
some of the conversations we've had in past CBRC meetings, some deals worked out between the schools and the county regarding mowing and usage of facilities. Like I know Parks and Rec basketball uses the school gym. So I think you all are just wanting to sort of delve into that more to see exactly what that partnership entails.
Yeah, because one of the areas that we, as a committee, that we haven't touched on is the Parks and Rec Department. I've been on the committee, I guess, for about 4 years, and this is not a department that we've kind of talked about. So it's just an opportunity to kind of hear from Kevin and kind of get some of his insight. Also knowing that, one of the challenges and opportunities that's listed in the budget is limited funding available for capital needs, increasing the potential for safety concerns, things like that. So I'd like to kind of get some more insight as to what that may be from his perspective. I have some things that, that kind of came to my mind as it relates to fencing and things like that. But also, just as an opportunity, it talks about, expanding marketing and promotion. And one of the things that's in here that, I thought was somewhat interesting, under the 2018-2019 focus and highlights, it speaks to a program has been implemented to allow businesses and organizations the opportunity to advertise at park facilities through the purchase of promotional banners. And so I'd like to kind of hear a little bit more from him about that. And, has anyone seen, banners or things? Okay.
I want to say, I think I have a Marshall Park.
Yes, it was some at Marshall Park this evening. I've seen at least two.
Okay.
At least two.
I haven't seen through Parks and Rec, but I know the Massaponics Marching Band does it on their trailer.
Yeah.
They
And-
have people.
And so I know it's at the high school level, through the public school, but I haven't really seen it, and forgive me for not having been out to Marshall Park for a while. But I haven't really seen it at the parks, through the county. So I'd be interested in kind of hearing again more about that, how potentially we can increase that, or if it's working, what is working, what isn't working, because I see that as an additional revenue, that can help offset some of the things, because we are a growing community. I thought that was interesting. Want to touch base on that a little bit more. Also was looking at promotion and offering of desired programs, and so something that is kind of in the back of my mind is that as the county and the community grows, and then I'm looking at the numbers and looking at percent of programs having percent of direct program costs recovered via participation fees, and just looking at again, I'm just looking at the county, seeing how it's growing, seeing also how children, and young people, because part of the mission is to provide quality recreation and leisure activities that will, for personal growth, physical fitness, and so, as this community, continues to grow, growing up, at least I kind of fit into the traditional football, basketball, track, baseball, that's what you did, and we have people in the community that have other desires, wants. They all can't play football, basketball, or baseball, and so I was thinking about my wife, who is a nationally ranked bowler in the country, and was thinking that a lot of people in the community probably don't know that people give scholarships for bowling, especially for young girls. It is huge, really huge. And so, but it's also, I would like to talk to Kevin maybe, because I think bowling is one of those things. I will say that I do bowl on a team with my wife, her brother, and her 80-year-old father, and I am the worst one. And I say that to say it also promotes family. It really is about family. And so when I'm thinking about Parks and Rec, and I'm thinking about our community and how it's growing, and things that not just young people can do, but families can do, because I think that's really a big piece of kind of maintaining kind of who we are as a community. And I know that's kind of getting off of the budget, but, things I wanted to kind of talk to Kevin about, because I think that is huge. So those are a few of the things that I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit with the Parks and Rec Department. Is there, and then we can also delve into the numbers, as well. And I think that is definitely a part of it. So that's really what I had, and we do have that meeting on
July the 11th.
July
They were extremely receptive, very open to the CBRC, and we'll be bringing other department heads, so we have a lot of knowledge in the room.
Okay. So one of the things that I would encourage the rest of the committee members to do is if you have an opportunity, I know we all have, jobs and other things, but prior to don't do it on the 4th of July, but prior to July 11th, if you can maybe take a look at, specifically the Parks and Rec Department's budget and their challenges, opportunities, or highlights things, and maybe send us some of your questions, because I do want it to be as inclusive as possible, and not just myself or Ms. Blaylock listening and answering questions. That's been my whole thing is, we all have something to contribute. So if there's questions, thoughts, that you have, please send them. If you look at the budget, I think there's a lot to kind of parse in here. When you're looking at number of program participants and kind of where they're going with that, the ultimate target, we're talking about increasing program participants roughly by about 5,000. The estimated target is to increase 1,000 for fiscal year 2019. The ultimate target is 42,000. I don't know how many years that goes out, but I can't imagine that it would be too far in the distant future. So when you're looking at program participants and them wanting to increase participation, that does have a financial impact, and so those are things that we can all kind of look at. Not including the library, which is something else, as well. So that is what. Yes, ma'am.
One question you might want to ask them is, how difficult is it to get volunteers? Because all the coaches are volunteers.
So that was one of the challenges right at the top. Is the first, Ms. Napper, the first bullet point was there's an ongoing challenge to find volunteer coaches in our community for the youth sport programs. And so, that is one. I think, because you can really kind of drill down into this, and it all will come back to the numbers and the finances. But you're also taking, we've seen over probably the past 8, 9, 10 years, an increase in travel teams and AAU and different, and so, traditionally those kids kind of, stayed in the counties, which means those fees stayed in the county. And now, these young people are, not saying it's right or wrong, but are, part of travel teams, AAU teams. And so that is affecting, the participation rates, which is affecting the fees, which means there's a smaller pool of children and parents who pay the fees, having to kind of carry that load. So how can we increase that? How can we potentially work with the school systems in other ways, not just, in the traditional ways, but in other ways to have partnerships because ultimately at the end of the day, a lot of these children who participate in Parks and Rec still end up going to the local public school. And so, they still end up coming back around. So, what are some of the things that we can do to kind of increase that participation, which ultimately, again, will take some of that load off of the county financially, when you look at the direct program costs via participation fees. So a few of the things I kind of have in mind, things I want to talk about. Is there any?
I just think the Parks and Rec's a great program, and I mean, for some of us that don't have the money, having inquired about traveling teams, for a lot of people, that's cost prohibitive, and Parks and Rec really is a way for some of us that don't have those resources to allow our kids to participate in that stuff.
So, and that's all I had. Are there any other agenda items? I know it's summertime. Ms. Napper is like, school's out.
The brain is, last day of school was Friday. The brain hasn't switched gears yet.
Well deserved, though. Well deserved to shut it down. So I know this is a fairly quick meeting, but if there's anything in between now and July 11th, feel free to reach out to myself, and we'll kind of go from there. Someone make a motion to adjourn if there's nothing else.
So moved.
Meeting-
Second.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.